Hi folks, welcome to my second video on rust tackling. Now, if you weren't fully convinced by my first video, in Boats We Rust, where I tackled the rust under my sink with the pipes that were actually the outlet pipes for my sink and my bathroom, this video should really show you how it actually works, and the fact that it's so powerful. I'm just amazed. It's so easy to use. This is my inspection hole that's actually under the sink, showing you the floor of the boat, and it's in a hell of a state. That's after the leaks I had from my pipes. It's full of flaky rust. I started out by cleaning off some of the paint on the sidewalls, which were relatively intact, and the idea was to take the paint back to steel so I can actually attach a negative electrode as part of the electrolytic process. What I used there was a very strong magnet, and under the magnet there is a little slim piece of nickel strip, and that was from an old laptop battery, and the wires connected to that. The electrodes, which I mentioned in the previous video about rust treatment, they're just carbon rods connected to mains flex, and then at the other end I've actually had little boots of cotton wool with twisted on plastic coated wire to hold them in place, and the idea is to stop any short circuiting out of the circuit, and they're connected to the positive connection. Now this is the electrolyte going in, the washing soda and water mixture, and isn't that amazing that just that liquid is acting just like a piece of copper wire, and that bulb is almost at full brightness. It's actually a 12 volt car bulb. I think it's 21 watts. There's quite a bit of power running through that. I was running it actually off a battery, a lithium battery, 14 volt pack, which cut off after 4 hours. But anyway, this is how I started out, and it was drawing 1.23 amps. It's a lot more than I used on the taps, but it's a much bigger area. As you see, that bulb is still going brightly. It did glow completely for 4 hours. After 4 hours I had to use a little power supply which was about 7 volts, and I left that overnight, and that was only doing about 700 milliamps. But by morning you could see that basically it more or less cleared, and I did a little experimental shovel around with a piece of plastic. I decided that it was time to finish, so I scooped the water out with a piece of takeaway meal container. That was a good way to get the mass of the water out. Didn't take too long. And then once I'd finished scooping out like this, the remaining dampness I just soaked up with a little kitchen cleaning sponge. And that was it when all the water was out. You can see what was left behind. Most of the rust was blackened. The bits that were still brown were basically bits that weren't in contact with the circuit, so they didn't get de-rusted or converted to black oxide or anything like that. And I scooped most of it out. I did actually take the camera away and use a second piece of plastic to make like a dustpan and brush arrangement, and I got a whole ready meal container's worth of rusty shale. It was quite a substantial amount, but like I say, it came out easily. And then what I did was I used a sponge to wipe over with some clean water in a bucket, rinsing it out, to get any residual rust and anything out of there. And the whole surface seemed to have a kind of a blackened appearance again. I think that's the carbon. And I was very pleased. There was a little bit on the right hand side because my electrodes didn't really stretch over as far on that side. Also, the negative electrode was only on the left, so I think really I could have done with a second magnet on the right hand side to improve the effect on that side of the area. So I haven't chipped that off, I just cleaned up the rest of the rust that was flaked off. The end result was quite good, although I did wash it down again about 2 days later, and it did a bit of flash rusting, a slightly brown coating on things. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and I bought some of this direct to metal international paint. I thought white would be nice under the sink because it'd make it easier to see what's going on down there. It's very dark underneath the floor. And as I applied it, I was quite happy. But once I'd finished doing the first coat, I noticed that there was almost like an olive oil slick appearing in certain locations, mainly on the side walls. And I believe that is probably down to the fact, I think it wasn't paint, it may have been kind of bituminous paint on the side walls. And it did turn it brown once it had gone off and completed. So I thought I'd get some proper blocking paint to try and give me a surface that I could paint over and not have the stain come through. But unfortunately Wicks, it's the only paint they had that was out of stock. And having gone home and checked our garage for paints, I found I had a big black tin of Hammerite. So I thought, well, what the heck, why don't I just paint over black? It won't even show if it comes through again. So that's what I decided to do. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but once I started applying it, especially on the back wall, I noticed it didn't seem to be going on very well. Certainly it wasn't like any other paint. And the end result was, once it dried, I noticed it was very lumpy, and I thought I didn't put that much paint on. And what had happened was, it had turned into almost like crocodile skin. It's very lumpy and ridgy, and it had reacted with the paint underneath, or maybe the see-through, I'm not sure. I think it's probably original paint layers, and it was a bit of a disaster, so I wouldn't recommend that. And I've only included the painting at the end just to show you what went wrong, because it wasn't very successful. The rust technique is great. Removing the rust was fantastic. The painting was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my painting career. Yeah, traditional primer and paint. A blocking paint, I think, if you suspect there's any bitumen going on. This is all leading up to me tackling my engine bay. So I don't really want to have to remove my engine like David from Cruising the Cook did. Obviously that costs quite a lot of money and takes a lot of time. Now, my last video title was called In Boats We Rust, and I said this was a magic rust treatment. Well, obviously it's not magic, it's science, but it works as though it is magic. And I like to think you could actually use a bit of hubble bubble and save yourself a lot of toil and trouble. So in that respect there is a magic connection, but that's about the only one. Subscribing and liking is important, not just for people who are actually earning money out of it. For people who are beginning, it's even more important, because YouTube doesn't actually advertise videos unless they're actually showing to be actually appreciated. So if you do actually click on it, and then that will actually mean quite a bit to me, because it means more people will get to see the videos, and that's really what I want. So that's great. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next time.